have to have a party and invite this microphone up. Now, there we go. That's great. Now, for those that weren't here yesterday, you missed a fantastic testimony of healing, conversion, and the mercy of God in a real practical, lifelike way. So, our next speaker has been working with post-abortion recovery for the last 15 years. She gives seminars and retreats all over America. And she works with the Grey Friars, and she works for an organization called Lumina. She's a fantastic story to tell. And without any further ado, please put your hands together for Miss Theresa Bonopartis.
All for Jesus through Mary. Good afternoon. As Don was saying, I work for an organization, and it's called Lumina, and it's a post-abortion program of Good Counsel Homes in New York. Good Counsel runs 5 homes for unwed mothers, and it was started by Father Benedict Rochelle, who I'm sure a lot of you know of, and Chris Bell. Sadly, we live in the abortion capital of the world, so they did see a need to minister to people who had had abortions, because many of the moms who came that were now having babies had abortions in their past. I also work in a ministry called Entering Canaan, a sacramental journey to an inheritance of mercy. And it's a post-abortion ministry that I co-authored with a group of sisters begun by Cardinal O'Connor, John Cardinal O'Connor, called the Sisters of Life. And we're in our 12th year of being blessed to help women and men find the mercy of God and healing from a past abortion. Yesterday, I shared my own personal testimony of God's healing in my life from an abortion I was pressured to have when I was a teenager. But not only in my life, the life of everyone in my family, from my sisters to my parents to my children who weren't even born yet. And it's just so amazing what God has done. I always joke, and I mentioned this yesterday, that I used to be a person who was afraid to go and order McDonald's. And now God has me speaking in front of thousands of people about the worst sin in my life. Only by God's grace do I do this. I'd be remiss if I didn't wish everyone here a happy Mother's Day, but especially to Mary, who I consecrated myself to 20 years ago, actually this month. In the Sisters Retreat House in Stamford, Connecticut, when you walk in their front door, there's a statue of Mary, and she's sitting on a chair, and her hands are on her lap with the palms up, nothing in her hands. And I just love the statue. I actually have a little card of it, but we didn't think we could get it on the camera. I just love it because, to me, she's just coming before God, which seems to be one of the themes for today, even though none of us knew this, but she's coming before God with empty hands, awaiting his will and direction for her. Like Mary, we too, in our work, God's work, need to have empty hands. But if you're like me, oftentimes I find my hands are cluttered with many things that I put there and not in accord to his will. So it's so easy to get caught up in things and think we know better, this is the way to go, and not really stay in a prayerful state and really make sure the things that we are doing are coming from God and not from ourselves. There's a quote in a great book, and this book I recommend to people if you could get it. It's by an author called S.C. Biela, and the name of the book is In the Arms of Mary. And in one of the chapters, he talks about how we're like limping sheep who drag themselves along. And that's really how I see myself, as someone who God has to drag along to do his will, but I am willing, and he knows that I want to do his will. And I seem to spend most of my life bringing myself back to him, because it doesn't take very long before I find myself moving away, even though I don't want to. And he knows that I don't want to, but it's just something that I do. Just another Eucharistic prayer, you could tell how I'm into these Eucharistic prayers, that really speaks to my heart, is that we need to show his goodness to ourselves, to let people know of the mercy that God has for them through us and through what we've experienced. And I'm going to center this talk, obviously, on abortion because that's the work that I do. But this message could really apply to any sin, I think. And also with abortion, there's so many other things involved in it. The rehabs, the drug places are filled with post-abortive people, eating disorders, depressions, all of those things. And so many times people go for treatment, and maybe the addiction is dealt with, but the abortion never is. And so it becomes a spiral. Every year in our country, in our world, 46 million abortions are performed. Think about that for a minute. 46 million abortions. So even if nobody here has any personal experience with it, it certainly is the responsibility of all of us that 46 million unborn children die from abortion each year. And the devastation to them is obvious. But the far-reaching implications are often ignored in a society where we'd rather not think about what we're doing, right? It's easier just to pretend it's not going on because it's almost too overwhelming. If we ever admitted the truth and really looked at it in complete honesty, it's just so overwhelming. So we too live in denial. We live in the denial of one abortion, never mind 46 million abortions. So who's having all these abortions? Well, I'm going to stand here and say that they're everywhere. They're in our families, they're in our workplaces, they're in our neighborhoods, they're in our church pews, and yes, they're even in the Divine Mercy Conference. There are our mothers, our fathers, our sisters, our brothers, our friends, and our co-workers. Each person sitting in this room knows someone who's post-abortive, even though they might not know that they know them. And for a few minutes, I want to share some of their stories with you, just to give you a better understanding of why people abort, or maybe the circumstances surrounding abortion. And I think it's just so important for people to understand this. I'm going to begin with Sandy. Sandy came for me from counseling when she was a college student. She was from a good Catholic family, and she'd been very active in her church group, in her pro-life group. Her whole family went to church all the time. She went away to a Catholic college, and when she was in college, she met Joe. And he was another great guy from another faith-based family. And before long, Sandy and Joe did what a lot of our youth do, despite what they've learned about chastity, the sanctity of marriage, and respect for life. They began a sexual relationship. It wasn't long before Sandy found herself pregnant, and ashamed to tell their parents that they had had sex before marriage, Sandy and Joe decided to abort their baby. By the time they got to me, they were both suffering greatly. Sandy shared with me that her father, who she was always so close to, knew she had changed. He just didn't know why. She wasn't the happy daughter he had sent away to college. Their family relationship was suffering, but they had no clue what it was because of abortion. And Joe's family felt the same way. Our world is filled with Sandy's and Joe's. Chris's girlfriend aborted their child when they were in college. Now in his 30s and married with kids, Chris finds himself emotionally distant from his children. His wife doesn't understand why, but Chris knows it's the guilt he carries around because of the abortion he participated in when he was in college. Our world is filled with Chris's. Megan's hidden her past from her husband, but it impacts all she does. She lives in the constant fear that someday he'll find out she had an abortion and hate her for it. Our world is filled with Megans. Carl came up to me after a talk I gave at a high school. He knows his mom has had an abortion. He overheard her on a phone conversation. He sees her pain and realizes now why she's always so depressed. He wants to help her, but he doesn't know how. He's also suffering from survivor guilt. Why is he alive and that baby is dead? His mom doesn't even know that he knows about her abortion. So although he has many questions, he keeps his feelings to himself. He doesn't want to upset her more than she already is. Our world is filled with Carls. Mary and Greg wanted a baby. They were so happy when Mary became pregnant. But then they were told that their unborn child had deformities. And this is something so prevalent in our society today, that when a baby is in the womb and it's not perfect, the couples are pressured to abort the baby. There's some great sites out there for people that are going through this. Just last weekend, we ran a retreat for couples who aborted their babies because of poor prenatal diagnosis. They're made to feel guilty by the medical profession of even thinking of bringing the pregnancy to term. One couple even sought counsel from a priest who told her that aborting the baby would be okay. Being in an emotional state, they gave in to the pressures, and now they're filled with anger, guilt, and shame because they realize they took the life of their own baby. Our world is filled with Mary and Gregs. The Joneses took their 17-year-old daughter for an abortion. They thought it would be the best thing for her. They wanted her life to go back to the way it was before she became pregnant. After all, she had her whole life ahead of her. She was too young to be a mother. Their daughter now suffers from anxiety, guilt, shame, and depression. Our world is filled with families like the Joneses. Bob was upset when he found out his wife Gail was pregnant. They couldn't afford another child. Besides, they finally had some freedom now that the kids were older. He threatened to leave his wife if she did not abort their baby. In truth, they've emotionally left each other anyway, and their relationship has been destroyed. Our world is filled with couples like Bob and Gail. George and Linda Zally didn't even know that their daughter Stacy had had an abortion at the age of 20. She never told those she loved and would have given her emotional support. After her abortion, she went for psychiatric help, but shortly before her 21st birthday, she committed suicide. There was an article I just read in a paper that I picked up at Father's Parish the other day about a woman, Emma Beck, who was an artist and had aborted her twins, and she too committed suicide. God only knows how many Stacys and Emmas there are in our world. 46 million abortions, 46 million stories, and countless lives of mothers, fathers, grandparents, siblings, aunts, friends, all impacted, whether they know they are about the abortion or not. And it's so important to recognize that because it goes into the family structure, and it really does affect everyone in the family, even if they're not aware of the abortion. And I know you guys, I mentioned my sons and how it had impacted them even before they knew. And when I finally told them, they said, well, now everything makes sense. So each of you here knows a Carl, a Chris, a Sandy, a Megan, and maybe even a Stacy. Each one of us are affected, and each of us could be instruments so that those suffering can, as the conference says, believe in Christ through your word, that they may be one with us. So many of these people, they're living without hope, and they're blind to the mercy of God. They're living in a hell. And that's really the way of life for them, that they're just existing. They see no way out of their pain, and it's often concealed very well by a denial that allows them to go through existence, but not really living life. They're not only mourning their children, they know they're responsible for their deaths. And it gets really confusing because many times people that have had abortions really feel stuck in the middle of the debate. You have the pro-choice, pro-abortion side, who's telling them it's a woman's body, it's a woman's choice, it's okay, there's no such thing as post-abortion stress. Like I was saying yesterday, it's depression, or it's this, or it's that that's bothering you. They make the women feel crazy and alone that abortion is even bothering them. But on the pro-life side, we have some problems too. And the fact that we've done a really good job talking about the sanctity of life and the destruction of the unborn, and we should, nothing wrong with that. But with over 46 million abortions in our world each year, there's countless numbers of souls of the parents of these children that are lost to God, and not enough outreach to bring them back to His mercy because they feel judged and they're afraid to come forward. I don't know if you guys, do you know Monsignor Riley? He does God's Precious Infants. He, I think, comes to Ireland quite a bit. I love him because he talks about how he goes to the clinic, and yeah, he goes to the clinic to try to stop abortion, but he says that mostly he's at the clinics to be there when the women come out after their abortion so that he can tell them about the mercy of God. There's sometimes fear in the pro-life movement that by offering God's forgiveness, we're condoning abortion, or by alleviating the suffering of those who have had it, we're taking away the seriousness of the sin. But no one knows better than those who have killed their children in an abortion how wrong it is, no matter how they act. A lot of pro-choice women, they act like it doesn't bother them and it's okay, but they know inside that it's not okay, because if it was so okay, they wouldn't have to defend it so much. If it was so all right with them, they wouldn't be out there pushing it all the time. It's almost like it's pushed because that's the way that's going to make it still seem okay. If you start looking at the truth, then they wouldn't know what to do, because then they'd be left there with the truth. And when you think about it, who could look at that truth without the mercy of God? I don't think anybody could. I really don't think that such a horrific sin, unless you have God in your life, how could you really look at that? Some people in the pro-life movement, I know in the United States, they'll walk around saying that people that have abortions are baby killers, or very innocently say something like, I don't know how somebody could have an abortion, because they can't truly understand how somebody would. But a post-abortive person hearing that will sink deeper into despair. And my response to people that talk to that like that is, thank God you don't know how anybody could have an abortion. Thank him that you never felt abandoned, or that you were raised with good morals and values. Thank him that you never had parents who threw you out, or a husband who threatened to leave and divorce you. Thank him that you were not so numb and deadened that you did not abort multiple children, or that you didn't think a career was more important than life. Thank God for his grace that saved you from this sin. We need for people like you to reach out to those suffering, for their souls loved by God as much as the children who have died. Sometimes it seems to me like we're walking around in the graveyard and we're picking up the bodies of the dead babies and stepping over the ones that are wounded, laying on the ground bleeding. Our society as a whole is grieving the loss of millions of its children, and knowingly or not, it's affecting each one of us. Many people are suppressing the grief, and they're suffering greatly on a spiritual, psychological, and sometimes a physical level. I mean, unfortunately, like, people sometimes aren't able to have other children, and they'll say, you know, oh, God is punishing me. And the truth of the matter, it's not God punishing them. Sometimes things happen. It's a consequence of an action that we take, and some of these people aren't ever able to have other children. Most often, they think they're crazy for feeling the way that they do. Jesus told us, blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. We're each in the position to bring the mercy of God to those out there suffering from any sin, whether post-abortive or not. By our actions and our words, we have the power to instill hope or to instill despair. It's really a big responsibility, isn't it, being a Catholic? I mean, sometimes, you know, when I used to teach CCD, people would think it's so easy, the kids would talk about being a Catholic, and I used to say, easy, that's what you think, you know? It's easy to follow your own will. It's not easy to be a Catholic. It's quite a responsibility, a call to sensitivity, but one that's so rewarded and so needed in our world today. There's such a harvest out there for people that are suffering from this. We're challenged to minister to people with no motive except for their salvation. Because we could be tempted to minister to people so that they'll go and tell their story and show the horror of abortion. But that's not why we should do it. We should never be tempted to push people along for our own agendas. But if we minister to them with no motive but their individual healing and bringing them back to the mercy of God, I know that God will take care of the rest and abortion will end. We could be the sign of hope in hopeless lives. Like Father Larry was to me when he took the guitar out, I told you about yesterday, and sang the song when I went to him. We could be the touch of compassion to those who feel condemned. Your words and your actions can make his love believable. You can be a sign of his mercy. 12 years ago, when Mother Agnes and a couple of the sisters and I sat down and spoke about beginning our ministry, we didn't know what we were going to do. We didn't know how it would turn out. We only knew we wanted to bring souls back to God, and I knew that he was asking me to give back freely what he had given me. I knew I wasn't special. He didn't look down and say, oh, there's Theresa, I want to heal her. I knew his mercy was there for everyone, and I also knew the hell that these people were living with. And I knew that he was preparing me for this, and I wanted them to know about it. We've been privileged over the years to watch him work in the lives of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, thousands of broken souls. And to be completely honest with you, out of all the people that I've ministered to all these years, maybe I could tell you a handful really wanted to have an abortion. People don't want abortions. They really don't. There's nothing so wonderful as to know from the depths of your heart the mercy of God, who takes even our worst sins and brings good out of them. To see those that are suffering transformed and eager to serve him because that mercy has touched them. I know that God took my worst sin and brought good out of it. Not that I'm glad I had the abortion, but something so completely horrible he turned around and used to bring not only me to him, but my entire family. Dave Reardon of the Elliott Institute, it's a program that does post-abortion research in the United States. He talks about how the most powerful voices for the unborn are mothers who mourn. In his book, The Jericho Plan, he speaks of longing and praying for the day when post-abortion outreach will reach a critical mass, when movie stars, politicians, athletes, and other public figures confess their abortions and witness to their healing and reach out to others. He believes that's when abortion will end. I believe that day of critical mass is coming. When I began this work years ago, there was very little out there, but the changes and growth are phenomenal and so wonderful to see. It may take time. Abortion carries with it much shame. The devil's got a huge hold on this, because even when somebody's healed and then they can't speak out, or maybe they're not called to speak out, and he instills fear and so many things in these people that, and again, you can't push somebody. Their individual healing is what's important. And it often takes a long time before people feel comfortable taking an active role. And that needs to be okay. We at the Sisters are blessed to be part of loving one soul at a time back to Christ. And God will do the rest. We strive to value their dignity as persons and to become signs of God's love and forgiveness for them. Not by saying their abortion was okay. We never say that. They know it wasn't okay, and abortion is never okay. But by the way in which we minister to them and the words we use and the mercy we show them. We can change the course of abortion because we have the truth and the power of Christ, who died on the cross for our salvation and rose to new life. Let's take up the challenge that they all be one as we are one, joined in the merciful heart of Christ for all eternity. Like the statue of Mary in the hallway of the Sisters of Life's retreat house, let's sit with empty hands as we do our work, so that God may place within them the person of Jesus Christ, who is mercy himself. Thank you.
Well done.